And good morning and welcome. Gosh, we're here on a lovely Wednesday, middle of our series this week. We started out the week talking about how to supercharge your job search. Yesterday, we talked about all the ways to really make your resume work for you. Resume's job is to deliver that interview. If it's not delivering the interviews that you're qualified for, there's something wrong with the resume. Today, we're going to learn how to take what we've developed on that resume. So be sure to watch the resume renovation lecture. And how do we move that to LinkedIn and expand it into a full three-dimensional sales brochure? Tomorrow, same time, 11 a.m., we'll be back for a very special part 2 to this lecture, which is called Career Evolution. And the idea behind Career Evolution is really simple. Once you have a LinkedIn profile, now what do I do with it? So tomorrow is really all about how to build a marketing campaign, which you can manage in just 2 minutes per day. Friday, and the time shifted on Friday, please take note, it is 12:30 on Friday. We're going to do interview intervention, and that's all the secrets a recruiter uses to make their individual be the standout. But you can use these secrets for yourself. And of course, we're going to wrap up the entire week's session on Monday. Yes, that's Halloween, and that's going to be at 11 a.m., also a time shift, so do check on that. And that's a special live Q&A. Ask Self-Recruiter. If you're not getting your job search questions answered, you have questions on resume, negotiating, anything you might have, send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. All the best ones are always included. So as we jump forward today and begin to take a look, this is building your career brand with LinkedIn and how to use it for your job search. So of course, we're going to teach you how to maximize your profiles into a full three-dimensional selling brochure, all about you, that would naturally drive that reader to a singular conclusion. My gosh, if I work with, buy, or hire from this person, best business decision I'll make today. Now, we talked a lot this week about this. You are a product too. We may not like this, but it's a reality we have to face today. So if we don't think about getting that shelf space for our product, if we don't think about getting that right lighting for our product, all those things that make our product stand out, a different product might be chosen. So we have to kind of embrace this, and we have to think about, well, what attracts us to products? How are you interesting? What makes you tick? You know, if it's a cup of coffee, Coca-Cola, something like that, obviously it's taste, those kinds of things, or the effect it may have afterward. But yes, be capable and qualified for everything you're going after. But the real decision comes down to number one above all other things, chemistry. How are you interesting? What makes you tick? And confidence in you, which could have something to do with why you're interesting, what makes you tick. All those things together factor into the decision. So you have to think about, on the LinkedIn side, it's about taking control of the discussion in a different way. Yes, we're going to stay professional. It's not about turning this into Facebook, but it is about letting them look just a little bit as if they're peeking over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending. What is capturing your interest in your field? Are you really living and breathing your profession, or are you sitting on the sidelines? This is part of taking control of discussion. We'll teach you all about that today. Tomorrow's lecture will energize and supercharge your LinkedIn profile once it's built. It's really about influence. That's the reason we put it out there. This is your professional shingle out for the world to see. Years ago, I used to get a lot of questions on privacy and everything else, and almost all those questions have disappeared because, you know, generational change, everything else, and we just get so numb to the information being out there. But in terms of LinkedIn, this is a cultivated, curated garden of your story. You literally control every single word about you. So it's really important that you think of it as a production. You know, resume, as I taught in yesterday's lecture, is really about capturing the essence and value of your career with a quick single look on a single sheet of paper, in my view. Everything I'm teaching you is my opinion, of course. LinkedIn, though, is something different. LinkedIn is the de facto social networking website for our work life, very much like Facebook, but this one is well, I don't know what Facebook's for. This one's for career. So everything here should be career related, but it's more than that. LinkedIn is also this communications, research, marketing, and advertising platform. Now, of course, business people think of LinkedIn this way automatically. You need to think of LinkedIn this way automatically. You have a career brand to manage forevermore. I hope this does not come as a shock to you. You're not going to have one more job. I don't really care what stage of career we're in. You're not going to have one more job. You're going to have one more job, and then one more job, and then one more job. That's the world we live in today. So the sooner you take control of your branding and your career story, your narrative, different opportunities will open up for you. So we're going to leverage a lot of these aspects of LinkedIn as we move through today's topic here. Now let's take a look at the network on LinkedIn. Here's a little bit of a sketch of a 3-level network. That's the basic of what LinkedIn is. Let's say you and I connect, happy guy in the corner connecting to another happy person. Oh, fantastic. Now you're my connection, but every one of your connections behind you, every one of the connections, regardless of your settings, every one of your connections are in John's pool, just like a big swimming pool, really. They're all in the pool, have a little fun. And every one of their connections are also in the pool, no matter what they do to their settings. So John gets a 3-level network that I own forever. I want you to think about that. We utilize that from a networking perspective. We also utilize it, especially tomorrow's lecture, about how we seed information across that network through a social media campaign. So I hope you come back to tomorrow's lecture as well, Career Evolution. All of it together is really about influencing how other people see us. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, a resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if your career is suffering from bad storytelling, many great people are off doing wonderful jobs, but they tend to have to take whatever one comes next versus why don't we take control of that whole journey? Why don't we put a little more decision in your power, control, and you restart that by simply rebuilding the narrative of what you've actually accomplished. Most individuals get so beaten down over time by what we had to go through for those various employers, we forget all of the contribution that we've really earned and we need to go back and take credit for. If you need help, check out my Self-Recruiter website, check under the services tab. All my packages are there. And if you need to chat before you know which one is right for you, send me a quick email and we'll set up a time to talk. Another resource that'll help, my book is certainly a great one, Self-Recruiter website, also over on Amazon. It's really a start and stop through the entire process of job search. Every little segment is really addressed, even right down to what if I get the wrong offer? What do I do and how do I renegotiate that? All the secrets from my time as a recruiter. One more resource. Now, this may seem strange because I'm doing the LinkedIn lecture right now, and I'm recommending another LinkedIn lecture of mine also on my homepage, Self-Recruiter website. And that is because I'll talk about different things here because it's a little different every time. But this version that's on my Self-Recruiter website is really great for you if you're going to build out your LinkedIn profile yourself. If you're going to try to do it yourself after this lecture, you can go to this version and you can use it as a start and stop tutorial where you can see me large, the slides large, and really start, stop tutorial while you build out and enhance your LinkedIn profile. On my LinkedIn profile itself, you can get to a number of articles, how to avoid the biggest mistake, or how your resume doesn't become resume roadkill, or how to supercharge your job search, or many others. So check out all those resources. And even though there's lots of advice there, don't let someone else think for yourself. Yeah, I live at Grand Street and FDR in Manhattan. And that means I get into Chinatown very early in the morning sometimes. Told this story early in the week, so you're getting it again if you've tuned in all week. And pre-pandemic, like most New Yorkers, I've got like a million things going in my head, or at least 5,000, that I'm prioritizing, dealing with all the time, thinking about, and gotta get there on the way to the subway, and lead, follow, get out of the way. And suddenly I look up, and first thing I see is the gigantic hog walking down the street up on this guy's shoulder. I'm like, wow, look at that. Something you don't see every day. If you don't get into Chinatown at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's highly worth a visit. You'll see some very interesting things you just don't see in normal life on a day-to-day basis. And while that hog caught my attention, absolutely, this is what was on his t-shirt. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. You have to put down that phone. You have to put down that tablet. You have to get out of the back seat. You have to get behind the wheel, or you're not likely to get to the destination that you're thinking about. So while there's lots of advice here, you have to parse it and you have to pick and choose what aligns with your goals, your challenges, and you have to take the step forward. Now, your brand, we talked about brand all week between supercharging our job search and yesterday's resume lecture. But now it's about moving it over into the digital world. And while we're talking about LinkedIn today, of course, that also involves Twitter, Instagram, and probably a number of other platforms. What I'm suggesting is not to get lost in the digital world, because that article that talks about the biggest mistake in job search is about time mismanagement. Time is the only resource you have as a job seeker. So it's not about like losing half your day on social media or digital, interactions. What it is about surgical use of certain platforms to push your brand. Social media matters because, it's where the people are. It's where you can influence other people. It's where the decision makers are. If you can get people to start talking about you, it's like starting a little wildfire. That's a good thing in your direction. Most important is probably that second one from the bottom there. If the proper use of social media, and that is really tomorrow's full campaign that'll teach you how to do. Tomorrow's, by the way, to set your expectations, it does require 2 hours of homework after the lecture. But with 2 hours of homework, you can spend 2 minutes per day for the next 6 to 8 weeks staying on the top of people's minds with seemingly no contact with them. That's what a proper social media campaign does. And of course, it helps influence those decision makers that constantly keep seeing you with your wonderful headline, which you're going to hear more about. And they're always looking over your shoulder, seeing what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, as you're living and breathing your profession, whether you're being paid or not, because passion does not require payment. This I'm volunteering here today out to the internet and everywhere else it's going across multiple platforms. So yes, thank you if you're joining me on YouTube or LinkedIn Live or maybe over on Facebook. And gosh, wouldn't I appreciate a like, comment, share, message, all that kind of fun stuff? Yes, absolutely. So let's change some perception along the way. Why are you going to get hired? Well, first off, let me be clear. Wouldn't hire anyone that wasn't capable or qualified. But I do not hire people because they're capable and qualified. I wouldn't hire anyone that didn't have that. That's a bare minimum foundation. That's not even on my requirements list because that's so expected. The reason I'm going to hire someone is number one, chemistry above all other things. The chemistry is the only thing I can't teach someone. I can't really teach someone chemistry. You ever come in number 2 or number 3? How did you feel? They didn't like me. Really? How did you get to that conclusion? Number 2, number 3, number 1, they're all winners. You do not come in number 1, number 2, number 3, unless you're a winner already. They simply didn't choose you. In fact, number two, who feels so bad? I loved you most, but I couldn't choose you because you didn't have the right chemistry for the team. But, this person over here, they're not quite as sharp as you are, but they had the right chemistry fit for the team. Everything's going to be perfect, not upset the apple cart. But I liked you most. So chemistry is really important. Confidence, number 2 reason I'm going to hire you versus everything else. This is before the credentialing, before the background, who you've actually worked for, what's the work product, assuming you're capable and qualified. But it really comes down to these 2 issues. So I hope that you are working in overdrive to build great chemistry with every single person that you meet, and also instill confidence that if they were to roll the dice on you, I don't even know what I'll get, but I know I'll get something different or special compared to just the ordinary cookie cutter replaceable folks. So chemistry and confidence, how are you interesting? What makes you tick? What's going to drive my interest in you? Now, hopefully those have something to do with our professional life, but they don't necessarily have to. If you're a 4-time marathon runner, that is part of your story, and let's get it in there. And besides, even if that has nothing to do with what you do professionally, what does it communicate? Energy, drive, unstoppable, goal-driven, probably good at my healthcare costs. So this part of the story we have to tell, we can't shy away from. Before I take you into the profiles itself, I want to take you over to my Instagram. I use Instagram as part of my overall social media strategy. You're looking at my Instagram right now, and you might be scratching your head going, but John, I don't see anything about you professionally here on Instagram. Absolutely not. I decide which channels to use for which purpose. Here I am 2.5 years ago in August 25th or 26th of August, just about to almost die in the desert at 108 degrees, taking a wrong turn that added 2 miles up on the sunlight plateau and not enough water, no matter how much water we carry. Definitely on the bucket list and almost became the bucket itself. So why is all of this here? Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? This has nothing to do with what I do professionally, but if you do look across my Instagram, you'll see a number of things there besides things like this, or hiking up the Hudson Valley, or climbing Half Dome out in Yosemite. Every time 9/11 comes around, you'll see a number of 9/11 shots, because unfortunately I lost one of my sisters years ago at 9/11. Everything on Instagram is somehow connected to challenge. Physical challenge, emotional challenge, and that ties right back into what I do professionally. But that's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. That's how I choose to use my Instagram. So I just want you to think about how you convey and influence others. And it's not every component about you in every place. It's like, tell one story here. What story are we going to tell over there? Small changes change everything. How are you going to reshape your story? How are you going to take control of that discussion? How are you going to move it forward and influence other people? Now, I mentioned this yesterday, big mistake people make. And when we go to cast a new story for ourselves on LinkedIn, we have to think about this. And that is, they try so hard to be cookie cutter perfect. I just want to be cookie cutter perfect. I'm like, all righty, I'll take number three. Fantastic. Number 3, you're hired. Number 3, I'm paying you less. No, you don't want less? Okay, it's fine. Number two, I'm going to take you. No, you don't. Number 5. I think we see the problem here when we're cookie cutter perfect. I am not paying more than the lowest bottom dollar, because you're all interchangeable to me. It's irrelevant to me. You have to somehow accomplish the cookie cutter perfect, but also have another layer of special, interesting, different, exceptional. And that's how you get a new set of responsibilities carved out, or a new title, or a new compensation package, whatever it might be. And certainly I'm going to need many more than just those 2 weeks vacation. I really hope that nobody falls for the 2 weeks vacation. If that's a scam. Nobody should be working 50 weeks a year. We need to learn how to negotiate. By the way, you only negotiate once they fall in love with you, once the ring is on the finger. That's when we negotiate the stone. Nothing before that point. In terms of how we're going to approach LinkedIn, we're going to have to think about a metamorphosis, a shedding of our skin and becoming that butterfly rather than the worm or whatever it might have been. It's our job. A lot of this on Friday, because it factors right into interviews. It's our job to teach them how to select us as the very best person. What if that was the mantra in your head? Does my LinkedIn profile accomplish teaching them how to select me as the very best one? Oh my gosh, I'd have to put my modesty and humility aside. I would have to step into the center of the stage in the spotlight. Absolutely. We all have to get past some of our limitations. As I far too often now joke and true confession, I'm actually shy and introverted, which usually makes people spit their drinks across the room when they hear it, because they cannot imagine that that's actually true, but it is. So you can get past any limitation that you'd like. All of these things will help you. Now, in terms of personal branding, a little more clarity before I take you into the screenshots and describe to you how to maximize the profile. Resume is about catching interest or piquing interest. Tends to be the first point of awareness about you. Not always. Sometimes it's LinkedIn, but resume tends to be. LinkedIn's really about closing the deal with really you being seen as its very best one. Or another way to think of it, the essence and value of your career on a single page, that's a resume. But becoming a 3-dimensional sales brochure all about you that naturally drives that reader to that one conclusion that, of course, works to your benefit. Also helps kick your competitors to the curb. Let me just mention, if you're looking at resume, a lot of people make this huge mistake of stacking up their contact information like a layer cake, eating up valuable real estate on a single page resume. It should be a single line leading, let's point the right direction, leading with the LinkedIn URL, followed by the city, state. No, don't need 123 any street. We don't hire you because of that stuff. Followed by the email, followed by your cell phone number. And yes, I don't care that you can't get your cell phone signal in your house. It's the cell phone number that goes there. Notice what's easiest to get to on the outside and getting them right to your sales brochure about you. Some other things you might have to cover in retelling your story. Now, we've all had a different experience during the pandemic over the last, 2.5, heading toward 3 years here. Can't wait for it to be over. I know some people think it's over, but I think we have a ways to go. During that time frame, you may have worked remotely. I can tell you, I've done a tremendous amount of remote video lectures compared to prior pandemic, and that's a value. That's a growth piece. What have you done? Have you worked remotely? Had you had to go into the office? If you haven't worked remotely, you're at a disadvantage. Not only because there's some real advantages to working remotely, even though you tend to work more hours and are more productive, but you also have more free time. But office is in flux. Even in New York City here, no matter what the drum beats keep saying, 50% of the offices are empty. So I'm not laughing at the real estate industry. I'm laughing at the feudal nature of we have to go back to the office. We have to go back to the office. I get it. Some dynamics of certain businesses need that, and other businesses do not. And that's left us with about 50% of the offices in New York, even at this very late date, empty. So your companies that you're interested in may be in flux as to what they decide to choose in the future. You have to work for all of those. Therefore, if you didn't work remotely and we're not highlighting that, you have to go back and highlight how you are capable in a remote world, because the world may shift that way on you. And that could be physical things you've done, like interacting with all those people you see on screen here, or it could be that you've done work like I'm doing with webinars or conferences or those kinds of things, all demonstrate remote ability. Now, I'm going to show you how to use LinkedIn for your job search, but I wanted to go over what a real job search plan really is, because it factors in too. In my view, a real job search is not sitting on the internet looking at job postings. When we sit on that, to me, that's pure tragedy. It's tragedy because that individual is wasting 50% of their available resource. Their time is the only available resource. And I can tell you, from doing all the national contracts across a 100 office recruiting system, I can tell you how those job postings are purchased in any company of any real size. Oh, not the mom and pop bodega on the corner type thing, but company of any size, they purchase the job postings one time per year. Only will you ever get a good deal. How many could I use? Let's go to the sales rep, do a little horse trading, sign that contract, or use them or lose them in 12 months. No idea 6 months up to a year ago. That ends up with half the job postings not being real. If that's your job search methodology, 50% of your time, your resource, your energy, right out the window. Why don't you simply upend that entire process by starting with 30 companies statistically perfect to hire you? A lot of that covered on Monday's Supercharging Job Search lecture. Go back and watch that. Devise the steps needed. Work backward like a detective. Grant yourself permission to be Sherlock Holmes. I mean, what John's saying is not possible, but if it were, how could it work? How could I land the sun, the moon, the stars, working backward to discover the steps? Not brain surgery. Discover the decision makers. Well, I'll literally teach you how to do that in screens coming up. You don't even have to think about it. What's their title? Decision makers. What's their job? To object to you. Why do we get so upset when someone objects? Well, you don't have this background. I get so excited when people object because I know that's a test. They want to see how I can put my thoughts together to overcome that objection, to persuade them. That's opportunity. You should get excited when they object because they're giving you the platform. Get a meeting, dazzle them, have them either give you the job or create that job for you. That's what an effective job search is. Now let's get to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really about networking. I like this second part of what networking really is, creating this pool of contacts, 3-level network that you can leverage to your benefit. Let me just add on, we're probably not going to leverage it the way most people's minds think. Oh, I can get Jack to introduce me to Jane. And oh, please don't do that stuff. It does not work very well. It's about leveraging the information you can extract from that network to just seem seamless, powerful, educated in your field. Now, traditional networking, we run down that list pretty much and we go, oh, so glad that's over. When I'm doing in-person lectures, I love to go, anybody like networking? Who likes networking? And like 3 or 4 hands will go up. Oh, I love networking. It's like 60 to 80 people in the audience are all like, You know who else's hand didn't go up? Mine. I'm actually shy and introverted. So would I like networking? Of course not. Am I good at it? Yes, I'm very, very good at it, because you can overcome anything with technique. So I want you to think about when networking, physical networking here, doesn't go well for you, it's because you're misunderstanding it. Oh, I have to go, networking event tonight. I have to go sell myself. Oh, I hope they're selling something cool to drink. Liquid courage. You get the idea. Yeah. Little bit we have to go sell ourselves, but nobody wants to hear you sell yourselves. What you're really there to do is to be the most interested person in the room. Oh, no. And Jack, what brought you here today? Oh, now, how did you get into that? That's so interesting. Jack, Jane, what brought you today? Oh, no, that's true. Now, what's it like over at your organization? Oh, fantastic. Now, out of curiosity, where'd you come from before that? 4, 5, 6 innocuous questions, as basic ones. A little bit of, I'm so interested. I can get everybody to do an information dump. I'm there to collect information into my basket of goodies here that I can utilize to make my job search, my life, my next interview easier. That's what networking really is. But we're going to take it over to LinkedIn and kind of break that usual customer expected thing that doesn't really work for most people. I mean, it's not as simple as getting in the room. We'll just exchange some cards and it'll just happen for us. Well, that's a little bit of a rut. We just keep doing the same thing and we somehow expect something different to happen out of that, but that's not very likely. And we're much more likely to end up back in the same place we always were destined to be. Let's change that equation. Is an equation of diminishing returns. We're simply going to change some of those rules. I never agreed to these rules in the first place. Well, maybe there was some little user agreement or some little tiny print I checked off that I agreed to. Just like that small credit card agreement print, you write all that stuff too. Yeah. So unconventional thinking, creative interpretation, moments of clarity that will come out of that. This is what you're really, really after. We have to get our own thought process engine working. So a great question to kick that off is, whom should I connect with? Everyone. Well, what you mean people in India, Russia, and China? Everyone. You mean people in janitorial services? Everyone. The worst thing you can do is prejudge. How do you know who your neighbor is, who your neighbor's kids are, who your neighbor's parents are, who the neighbor is themselves, who their friends are? We misjudge people all the time. In a 3-level deep network, I guarantee you, the India, Russia, China, janitorial services, whoever it may be, 2 or 3 layers behind them, there are some very, very good people in that network. If I could connect to every single person, I absolutely would, because it's about sitting on top of all the data that I can then extract information from. So think of all the places you can potentially network at and be ready for it. Or even when you're in the park or waiting in line at the movies, when we decide to go back to the movies, I think some already have. I'm still watching them at home. Sum up this first part. Let's link with as many people as possible. That is how you're going to grow a very, very powerful network. Now, 2 techniques, then I'll show you how to maximize the profiles themselves. 2 techniques. I use these every day as a recruiter. First one is how to build a statistically perfect list of 30 companies that would like to hire you. Good recruiters use this list. Now, if you've ever worked with a recruiter and they're like, wow, you have a great background, love to work with you, and they meant it, because oftentimes they don't. But if they meant it, what they do is they do this technique. They're going to go into the recruiter database. Of course, you have your own database called LinkedIn. And they perform this technique I'm going to teach you. And from it, they build a list of 30 companies statistically perfect to hire that candidate. Then they do not bother to look at those company websites. They do not bother to go look at the job boards. They simply pick up the phone and call 30 managers at 30 companies. Every single time, 2, 3, or 4 out of the 30 go, oh, I need a person just like this. You do? Tell me about your need. Tell me about the problem. Tell me what we're trying to solve. What we don't tell them about is the magic trick, the homework, the mathematical equation that led me to this success. How does this work? Real simple. I'm going to go into LinkedIn. I'm going to search for people just like me in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form, some way, shape, or form. And then I'm going to look for people in that group that made one job move forward. By default, they'll have one back since we're identical, one back, one forward. Collect them all together, and you realize I'm going to take a look at all these companies. Now, if I was a Coca-Cola quality manager, and suddenly I am no longer, and I'm looking for new work, and I pull all of this, first thing that's going to happen to me is heartbreak, because I'm going to look across this and go, 7-Up, Pepsi Cola, RC Cola. John, I could have written that list myself. Yes, and that part of the list you should have written right off the top of your head. And yeah, you're going to see those mixed in here. But you're also going to see tons of other companies you've never heard of, because there's like a million food and beverage companies you've never heard of. Every one of them statistically right to hire you if they hired your duplicate. You're simply realizing which companies want to hire that background and realizing they'd love to hire your background if they had an opening. I'll show you another method for statistically perfect lists further on. Second technique is a 1, 2, 3 forward. This is great if you're just starting your career. Also great if you're mid-career and are so done with that, but I don't know what to do next. So this one's more complex. I have an example to show you. Gal called me up from Atlanta and said, I think I don't have a career. I'm a few years out of school here. I'm not sure what to do. I'm like, oh, a little harsh. Let's send me your stuff. Let's take a look. And 2-3 years out of school, a little of this, a little of that. Now managing a health club. Nothing wrong with managing a health club, by the way. Doesn't want to do that. I don't know how to find a career. I'm like, oh, I have an idea. Let's do this brainstorming exercise. I said, you're just into the workforce. No, I've been working 3 years. I'm like, well, welcome. There's nothing here. Let's go back to what I see as your initial asset, which is your education. And let's find people that took that same exact education 3, 4, 5 years out from that. And let's find something of interest to you, and let's learn a new pathway so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so my client had gone to Clark Atlanta University. I said, great, we're gonna search Clark Atlanta University. And through the magic of search, at the time that I did it, they were all 3, 4, 5 years out of school. And we start to look around. It doesn't matter where they're located. What do you like? It's like, events. I like to work in events. Oh, events at Warner Bros. Oh, that sounds pretty good to me. I'd love to be a membership director. Oh, recruiter. Like to help people. So we'll come back to that one. Went up there to Trish, and how did she get there? Membership director at this nonprofit, the Chamber of Commerce. You know what her first role was? Membership associate. And her second role? Membership manager. And voila, 3 steps in, she's membership director. Well, here's my client over here on the right, Tahita. I said, Tahita, now we know what we're looking for. We're looking for a nonprofit or foundation. There's a lot of those around Atlanta. And we know what role we're gonna go after. Member services. I don't even know what that is. Well, I don't either, but apparently they're gonna love your background. Let's go sell it. And of course, she found herself on her first step of her 3-step career goal into the Georgia Pharmacy Association as member services. Now, I've been telling this story for a while. I have to update it. She's made 2 more moves up to manager of member services and database, and finally up to director of membership operations, down an entire track that was really not on the radar before we had our conversation. If you wake up as that Coca-Cola quality manager, you're so done selling sugary sodas, but now what? You do the same darn thing, and you pull the people that made 3 job moves forward. Yes, that's much more digging, much harder. And most of them will have all gone food and beverage, but some will have spiraled out into other fields. How do they do it? How do they do it? I don't know. But why don't you just follow them? The companies they went to love your background. That's how you can jump into a new field, even though you're going, why would they want me? Must be the training, must be your clients, must be the exposure. Perception's reality. We're this product. We have to shape that product. That means we're going to have an idea of what we want people to feel, think, because every small change we put into place changes everything and solves this problem of being cookie cutter perfect and different at the same time through how we put the information together. So here's some shares off my profile. Shares as part of your profile, or how your profile becomes really interesting. That's all of tomorrow's lecture on the share piece that becomes part of it. So here I'm doing a Morgan Stanley event. There was a group shot, and then I'm sharing one of my lectures that I was running out to. So I shared that. Then I'm doing a boot camp, which I'm trying to get fully online right now, but I was doing it as live boot camp the last few years. So I posted that picture up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio, for a couple hours drive time. I've done that 4 or 5 times, a lot of fun. Didn't make the shot, but it was 6 a.m. But my book, My Coffee, made it into the shot. The different articles and things that I'll share over on LinkedIn are all there. All of this begins to affect perception of you. So whatever you put out there. Now, yes, most of my stuff tends to be about me because I'm a public speaker. I doubt all of your stuff will really be about you. It'll be about people looking over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending. I do want to point out this one because I can't post the same darn picture all the time. And I'm posting another lecture, running out the door, and I'm like, oh, I need a different picture. And someone happened to be sitting in one of my audiences very close up front toward the end of the lecture when I'm showing a ridiculously long email signature. I feel greasy. I feel red-faced, from embarrassment. And suddenly I get 1,500 views. I'm sure you probably noticed by now, even if you haven't put your finger on it, I exert a lot of branding control. And full disclosure, my other half is a creative director, so I get a lot of help there. But there's value in staying within parameters, but not being afraid to break your brand, being a real human being. Being a real human being sells, even though all I see is, where's my hair? Why is my nose so big? Why am I so greasy? Passion will make you greasy. Okay, success here in the profile itself is about how much work you put into it. I'm going to take you through my LinkedIn profile, but I want you to disregard my content. What you need to learn is how I've utilized the space to tell story. And yep, even if it makes us want to lose our lunch, we're going to have to talk about Twitter, because I'm a big believer that if you'd like to be employed, every single thing that I share on LinkedIn needs to be allowed to seamlessly flow to Twitter to double your advertising. You realize watching this series of my shares across the screen, none of these include me, but think about if these were just all about what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, interested in, that's how you begin to affect focus and narrative. And if you'd like to be employed, all those things are searchable on Twitter, even if you never visit Twitter yourself personally. So send that stuff out there. It'll have a lot of help. You have to think for yourself which additional platforms that you can manage without getting out of control. I think you can probably manage 2 or 3, maybe even 4 social media platforms for your job search, primarily being LinkedIn and Twitter, and then whatever else makes sense for you. Oftentimes it can be Instagram or something like that. Now, in terms of our content, most of the content work, go back and listen to what we talked about all in yesterday's lecture, that resume renovation, but we're going to filter all of our career story through this singular question. That will help us decide what's valuable enough to put on LinkedIn, what rises to the level of being the best business decision they're going to make if they choose to hire me. So quickly, I can see, what I have to focus in on, the revenues, the expenses, somehow affecting performance. And this may mean you have to go back and reinvent how that story was told. If you need more talk on this piece of it, watch yesterday's lecture for resume renovation, where we do a lot of core work on that. Now, the techniques for the profile itself, let's get in there and take a look. First thing you have to consider is how you look when others take a look at you, or when you look at others, what do they see? So big way of using LinkedIn for job search is to stack rank that list of companies that you really like to see. Then company number 1, let's say it's ABC company. I want to pick 25 to 30 people at ABC company that somehow surround that job. I imagine the job is here, and I want to pick people up the food chain, down, very strategic reasoning, left and right into other departments. If I pick a nice, healthy mix of 25 to 30 people and open their profiles, I show up just like this, looking at them. Hi, here I am with my nice headline. So you could be these 2 folks at the bottom that really don't understand LinkedIn, because there's absolutely no purpose to privacy on LinkedIn. This is your cultivated, curated garden of your professional shingle. It should not be unavailable at any time. Jonathan here, next one here, I can tell you that first off, picture isn't right, because Jonathan is not in the glam industry or fashion industry. So even though you may love this shot yourself, that's not the right shot for LinkedIn. Maybe you take that over to Facebook. Founder and owner. I don't know if anyone here is a founder and owner. If you are and would like to be hired, please take that off of your profile. We do not hire founders and owners because they don't listen to us. They have their own ideas. We can't tell them what to do. We can't manage them. Let's get out of our own way and change that title to principal. It has all of the same meaning. without any of the baggage. That's a person I can manage, I can trust, I can leverage. Deborah here. I don't know why we look at Jonathan there. Look at Deborah here. Textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. I have a focus. Fantastic. No, but I wonder what Deborah does within textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors, and the level of her contribution. But I see good energy, which is always important. Brad here, of course, corporate affairs, communications, global reputation management, government relations, crisis comms. Oh, look at that. Looks the part too. And of course, full disclosure, that's one of my clients. You have to look the part. You know, just before this, I was out doing cardio on the waterfront here in New York City, and I'm in, you know, running tights and five-finger shoes and t-shirt and whatever. And if I came here like that, I don't think you'd be listening to me, because there's a disconnect. You have to fit what's expected. Same thing in how you present yourself professionally. Your profiles are the world at your window. What if you were in retail? Now, it'd be a terrible time to be in retail, but what if you were in retail? Your job is to get people in the store. What are you going to put in that window to be interesting, to draw them in? How are you interesting? How are you different? What makes you special, exceptional, in addition to being capable and qualified? So let's take you through the secrets. We do want to use a banner. Most people do not use a banner. You do not have to be in the banner. I'm in the banner because I'm a public speaker. It's very easy for me to get shots like this. But for the rest of us, you could be in the banner, but it's not really about that. It's about finding an image that works in harmony without disrupting your profile shot. They have to work together. So this is part of how we create the very, very first impression. Also part of that first impression, besides our headshot itself and the banner shot, whatever might be there, setting the tone, hopefully elevating our career brand already, is this headline just below our name. Now, most people misuse this space. They put their current or last employer and title. Really? That's the most valuable thing that you can put in that spot? I really doubt it. What you need to do here is package yourself, encapsulate yourself, considering what the actual function of this spot is. We get distracted by this because we see our name, we see our picture, we see this right below our name and picture, and we go, I'm so emotionally attached to it. It's all about my profile. No, it's not really about your profile at all, which doesn't make sense because it isn't. What this is about is your social media sharing. So let's fast forward to tomorrow, where you've built a campaign and you've built out this social media share campaign. You're connecting with new people. You're joining new groups. All those things, by the way, cause a ping to the network. And with that ping goes your picture, goes your name, and this headline. So this is not out to the, few hundred people or whatever people you're connected to. This is about to the potentially millions of people you may have in your 3-level network that have no clue who you are. What did I put in my package thing if this is all I could tell them to create interest? Author and career coach, resume, LinkedIn, and career branding guru, featured speaker at NYPL, Department of Labor, CUNY, and many others. Quoted and seen in Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes, Essence Magazine. Oh my gosh, I can contact this guy. Would you like to be contacted? Put your email address in the headline. One of the only places LinkedIn does not promptly hide it from 99% of the people, because that's their business model. Now, I refuse to be controlled that way. I put it right in the headline. Do I get a lot of spam? You betcha. Would I let spam prevent me from getting to my destiny? Well, I think that's foolish. One other piece to consider here is the 500 plus. We'll show you how to get there. You must get to 501. You cannot be a mover and shaker in your field until you're 500 and plus. I don't care if you're at 0 right now. You could be at 500 plus in 4 days, 4 work days. You could be there, and I'll teach you how to do it. The about section also, just in the first view, has a lot of building the impression about you. So I want you to think about all these things. So the banner image, yes, just know that it should not draw more focus than you. Has to work with the profile image. Our headline is really, why am I interesting? It's a message about us. It's a sales pitch about us. Hopefully it gets them to click on us. I have to know more to open the sales brochure. All of this happens by trial and error. You do not I'll write it offline. I'll just stick it in there. Well, when you stick it in there, you have to try it multiple times to see what works best, what communicates best. I have to play with the banner. I have to play with the images. I have to test. Now we're down in the about section. The key to the about section is really the same kind of effect as the top of the resume with the positioning title. If you didn't hear all about that, watch Resume Renovation yesterday. But what we're trying to accomplish here is the same thing. We're trying to prevent their normal evaluation, which is employer title, employer title, employer title, education, decision. We're trying to short circuit that by simply telling them why we're special in a new way. So the About section gives you permission essentially to pull together different pieces of the background from the entire career in the way you'd like to go, look at how special this is. White space, incredibly important. I could have put these media names in much more succinctly, but then it would have taken an extra second, 2 or 3. There is no extra second, 2 or 3. This way they just glance down at imprints, glance down at imprints. They don't even have to read the whole thing. They glance down, imprints to absorption. There's so much room in the About section. It's 3 screens long in what I'm showing you here. I put in some of the organizations I speak with. Department of Labor, New York Public Library. Then I immediately put in 8 more, but you realize I couldn't put in a list of 8 because that becomes a block of text you don't read. I couldn't have them miss NYC Service or Rainbow Push Wall Street Project or Goldman Sachs or Harvard Business School Club of New York City. I can't have them miss that stuff. So I have to space it out so the brain can grab it and absorb it. Narrative today is how it quickly stacks up in the brain. Still more room left, so I put in a few of my titles. Great way to get more keywording in there. Also rolled the dice on an entire paragraph out of my book, but I made it friendly by putting my name after it, everything else, and then even put in a pitch for my full services. Now, beginning to add things to your profile is how things populate to your activity window. Many people's activity window is empty. And empty means you may have gotten hit by the bus because you have not shared a single thing in the last 90 days, which means, are you even doing your profession? Why would I want to hire you? So this is why you quickly can populate a few shares, which I'll teach you tomorrow, so people can look over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, living my profession, whether I'm being paid or not. Now we get down to the traditional resume portion of LinkedIn, but this doesn't look like a resume. Why would I make it look like a resume? Those things don't work very well either. Just see how you're going to utilize space to tell a story, how you make things absorbable. This is about how you parse out the information and then how you make that information stand out. You can spend some time on my profile yourself, borrow the technique, change it over to your information. You get how this would work. Really, it's as simple as once we remove the sentence structure, nobody wants to read. So let's get that stuff out of there. You realize even with no sentence structure, you completely understand what I'm saying here. Once you parse the information into groups, then you go back and add just a tiny bit of all caps. Don't add any all caps, not likely to read all of it, or too much of it. You read too many all caps, not likely to read very much at all because nobody likes a lot of all caps. Excuse me. Here's a little bit of how a 2-line bullet might look. And look at the very bottom. This is just in the self-recruiter job listing, but I could have put it in any job listing. I skipped a few spaces down. I put keywords, : run it all together, and I put a keyword block in. Let me be clear. Most people do not need a keyword block. This is a waste of time for most people. If you need a keyword block, this is how you do it. There's no special place. One special place not to put it, please don't put your keyword block up in the About section. Nobody wants to read the keyword block. This is for the machine. Everybody gets that. So we don't want to dilute real story with keyword block. Now, I've given you a lot of time while I've been talking. You might have actually read that. And if you did, you saw Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, never quite know how they're going to search him, Tori Johnson, 5 O'Clock Club, 92nd Street Y. All these things I have absolutely nothing to do with. Why are they here? Because John thinks like a detective. Those are all things that you could search to find someone like John, but you won't find John searching those things. So how do I come up in the search results? How do I rub elbow to elbow? By putting them right here in the keyword block. So remember, every single section, it's about trial and error to visually get this correct. Remember, there's the mobile version too, but you're not optimizing, in my view, you're not optimizing for the mobile version. You need to optimize for the desktop laptop version, because even though all of the platforms get looked at in the hiring process, that is the primary one. So best look is, of course, for the desktop laptop version. Each of your jobs can also take visual elements. So whatever visual elements you may have available. You want to go back and think about sharing those, bring your career to life. Here's a technique I want to point out from earlier in my career where I'm VP over the 100 office recruiting system. We did manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, chemical, on and on. Wonderful way to get more keywords in there. Now, let me be extra pointed about this technique. This would be a terrible technique to use on the resume. In my view, you have a single sheet of paper. You need to be singing your praises, and that's not a lot of space. Keep it focused. But over here, we're not handcuffed by the real estate. And so I can put this in here, and I can get that moonlight to reflect the sunlight back upon me. So when anybody in any one of these fields needs help with a resume or LinkedIn or the career branding or whatever else it might be, guess who comes right up based on how I told the story. So if this technique can help you in telling your story, I think you get it now. Same technique, even though it looks completely different. Earlier in my career, associated clients. Now that could get you in trouble. Let's be aware of non-disclosures, trade secret agreements that we might sign. You have to stick to those things, but I had the right to share every client that I worked with. I shared every single client that I worked with. And go back and think, if you worked at any one of these clients and you needed help with your resume or help with the LinkedIn profile, help with my career branding, guess who would come right up based on how I told the story. So again, another way to see how this could help you. And look what's just below that, a secret little line that says invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and lion. You can copy this right out of my profile, paste it into yours. This is how you get endless new connections forever. It communicates that there's no judgment, no judgment. I'll just accept everyone, just send all those requests through. Of course, I'm using the publications module. I've got my book in there. I've got a couple articles in there, but even if you don't have those, you could write 4, 5, 6 single page and a half articles about how you use your pearls of wisdom in your career. Kind of like if I came to you and said, could you talk to my kid? They kind of like to come down the same career path as you. Could you give them some pearls of wisdom? Yeah. That kind of wise mentoring tone, 4 or 5 articles like that illustrate what you bring to the table in your level of career. Pop them on a free blog. Use the publications module to highlight those things. Doesn't really matter if they ever even go there. If you volunteer, well, for myself, I don't use the volunteer module, and I don't use it for my clients because we're so dismissive. We're so interested until, it's volunteer. It's volunteer. Even in my head, it's not even real. Well, I'm volunteering here today. I can guarantee you this is real. It's actual real work. So for myself or my clients, all that contribution back to humanity goes under the organizations module, which has all of the benefit and none of the dismissive baggage. So whatever you've been involved in, you put it in here. By the way, you see a lot of dates here because I'm a public speaker and time relevance for that. This field does not require dates, and good works do not expire. So feel free to leave your dates out as long as whatever you put in here is absolutely true. Another illustration of that technique with the NYU Wasserman Center here. Was invited over there for an event, and I was like, oh, sure, let's try it. And I'm getting ready for it. And suddenly I see John Ladinsky, one of the guys involved, has so many followers. I'm so jealous. He has more than me. I'm like, oh, gosh, John, he's had a 30-year career. Get over it. I'm like, but I'm shy and introverted, become competitive. I want to win. And so I'm thinking, really, I've already got my own followers. I'm thinking, how do I get John Ladinsky's followers? Spread the love around. So by giving credit to other people and you get that moonlight coming back. Every time they search John or Jessica or Vincent or Wasserman Center, guess who comes right up also based on how I told the story. Keyword skills endorsement module. It's 50 words or phrases all about you. If you've touched it, it can be here. It's a very low threshold. All your great skills should be there too, but fill up every single spot so they can dial you up by recipe. I need someone that's touched this, is really good in that, also has some exposure to that. Fill out your 50 words or phrases. All of the information that you get input into does reassemble like you see here in a much more condensed way. All of it can be expanded. So all that keywording behind the deeper story is still really great for you. I want you to think about how all these things come together to build out a real 3-dimensional sales brochure. They can expand it and see more story anytime that they'd like. So LinkedIn does a very good job here of making it not overwhelming to the visitor or the reader. Written recommendations, perfect world. I'd like to see 4, 5, or 6. I think I have 52, 53, 54. There's not a single edit. Now, if you go and read some of my recommendations, you'll know there's not a single edit because your head's going to want to explode pretty quickly because you're going to see all sorts of typos, grammar all over the place. Oh my gosh, didn't John see this? Of course I did. That's why they work. Don't change what people say. This is not, the reflection on you is what they say about you, not the way they say about you necessarily. So roll the dice, trust people, don't tell them what to write, and they'll write something very special about you. And none of it can go public until you approve it. So roll the dice and even surprise yourself on what happens to you. There's a self-recruiter group. I think that's a pretty good group. You should think about your group strategy and join as many groups as possible, because every single group that you join, every one of those members is in your 3-level searchable pool. They can see you, you can see them, your content could land on their desktop. Follow some influencers. Look at that. I'm following Tony Robbins, mostly so I can get behind him on stage, give him a little push. Get a little long in the tooth, got to make some room for us. Follow some important people. How do we get to the 500 connections? Really simple. A couple of different search windows as we wrap up today, and we're going to show you how to get to decision makers as well. This part's pretty easy. We go to the unified search box at the top of any page. I'm going to search for invite me. Remember that one line that was running? Invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and line. So each one of those phrases, I simply put it in quotes and search, and I'm going to get, even on the free version, 10, 11 pages, they'll let me see of all these people. And I just run down and I invite and connect with everybody. It doesn't matter. All invites accepted. Notice it's in quotes, so I get the correct ones. I don't want someone that has all in the profile and invites in the profile and accepted. I want all invites accepted. Now I go back and do open networker. Sounds a little strange, but open networker, same kind of thing. And the last one, line, doesn't actually need quotes because it stands for LinkedIn Open Networker, and it's a single word. Now you're going to get a few that dump along, like at work at Line Apparel right there, or Food Line, or line team at the real estate company. Yeah, a few that dump along. Most of them are high volume networkers. Wherever you are in that process, take your first step, repeat, and move that process forward. Last piece for today, and then we'll continue with tomorrow, is how to get to the boss, boss's boss, and boss's boss's boss, or really anybody else. Back to this same unified search box, top of any page. This example here, I'm going to search Informatica, big database middleware company. As you start to type, it's going to give you this drop-down menu. Oh, don't click on the drop-down menu. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. Just don't do it. Hit enter, and you get this nice secondary sorting process. I'm here to look for people, rebuild the org chart so I can go after the 25 to 30 people that surround the job, but also maybe there's other companies I forgot. So I have to look under the companies and realize there's thousands of companies listed under Informatica. It's a few dozen that are Informatica. Who are the rest? System integrators that resell or install Informatica software. If I'm statistically right to work for Informatica, I'm very likely statistically right to work for a great number of organizations further down this list. So go take a look. They'd probably love to hire you. But then I really have to get to people. So I go back over, no, show me the people. And I'll come up with something crazy. Oh, 2.5 million. I can't look at that. Have to distill down. So, give me the ones really in the US. Those are the ones that I really need. And I need also the ones that, besides really being in the US, I need them to be currently working at Informatica, not like 3 years ago working at Informatica. And so what do I get from all of that? Oh, 1,615 results. Pretty good for you. I can't look at 1,600 people either. I have to think some more because it's brainstorming. It's a VP. I think a VP is the one that's really going to hire me, probably in course US and course Informatica. 75 VPs, a lot of chiefs at that company. Maybe it's a director. It's a director. Really US, really Informatica. 228 directors. No. I have it because it's problem solving. I don't know. It's a sales director. It's a sales director. And while I'm thinking of it and I have this epiphany moment, it's a sales director right within New York City, even on the free version. What do I get? Three. I'm looking for 3 to 5. 3 to 5 total. 25 to 30 overall. 3 to 5 targets I'm looking for that I think somehow would be involved in the decision process or conversation for a person like me. 3 is great, but if I could get 5, even better. So I have to go back and maybe there's a sales VP also in New York City. What do I get? 2 more. Now I'm up to 5. Fantastic. I love this part. But there's always a monkey wrench here and there. And part of the monkey wrench is some of them have this send in mail. I hope you know what in mail is. Spam. Literal definition of spam is paid email. May not seem like spam to you, but I can tell you my inbox is jam-packed with well over 1,000 unopened nonsense spam messages. Yep, a few good ones get missed in there too, but it's so overwhelming with spam, it's useless to me. But I still would like to connect with Nick. So if I could just not be emotionally frustrated, I could load Nick's profile where they'll frustrate me again with the send email. And then I click ... and they've just hidden it behind the ... So once you select that thing, I connect, and this is a message you write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. Says you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. Here's a little stroke to the ego. Write it one time, copy and paste forevermore. All of that equity that you're building, this information that you're building about who works there, what's the priority, who do they report to, all that should be captured. These forms are all over on my Self-Recruiter website under the advice tab. Just look for the job search management system, and there's much more discussion of this in past Monday's lecture, Supercharging Your Job Search. That really brings us to the end for today. We're going to continue LinkedIn discussion tomorrow, of course, because LinkedIn part 2, which is called Career Evolution, preparing for your career's next leap with social media marketing. Tomorrow will be all about how you spend 2 hours of homework to build out a very effective social media plan that you can use for 6 to 8 weeks. And then we just have to refresh that plan with about an hour worth of homework in 6 to 8 weeks. Tune in tomorrow for that. Friday will be interview intervention. That is a special 12:30, had to move the time, 12:30 session on Friday, interview intervention. All the secrets to really teach them how you're the very, very best one to select. Monday, we'll do a recap on the entire week with the special Ask Self-Recruiter live Q&A. So not getting your questions answered, send them in. Send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. All the best ones are always included. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you here tomorrow at 11. And if you need help, check out my Self-Recruiter website. All my services are under the services tab. And if you need to talk before you know which one is right for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to chat. Thank you guys, and see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.